Hello, gamers, or game designers, or developers, artists, programmers, animators, and there's way too many roles. My name is Kyle Bannon, and I've been working at this game studio over the past 6 years. Working here has been quite an experience. Gaming and working on them too is something I never thought of pursuing in reality. In case you were still wondering, my field is in game design. Game design is defined as a type of artist that applies creativity from their, or others' imagination into an interactive game. They usually think of the game from its gameplay, to its code, to its story, and so on. In this field, there's no such thing as useless information, and the staff is always open to new ideas for the game's development. Even if you have a very active mind and have all of these unique and creative thoughts throughout your cognition, it's not going to be enough if that's all you can do. Game design is not just about concepts. Learning about important subjects like 3D modeling, computer programming, composition and art, and pretty much as many subjects as you can is vital to becoming a successful game designer. Giving and receiving criticism is also important if you want your work or others' work to improve over time. This ensures that quality of the game that game designers are going for will be met. Meeting deadlines helps to keep development on track, and helps the person with the assignment to get to work on it sooner. Learning about being a leader/follower ensures that you understand the role of responsibility and how it impacts the workplace. And keep in mind that these are just portions of what a game designer needs to know in order to succeed and produce games with studios that will be successful, and be mostly known for masterpieces. Every game follows a similar process: pre-production, production, and post-production. Now the time span of development is mostly determined at pre-production, as mostly just concepts play a big part in this state. Games with bigger scopes tend to have more programming, concepts, and overall just more work. Therefore, they take longer to develop. During production, the game's teams of designers, programmers, and artists use many documents as a way to guide them into creating the game in their specific fields. They all collaborate in order to meet the game's expectations. For example, photographers can use artists' character concepts to create textures for the characters in the game. In this state of development, the game gains many improvements in order to give it more replayability and less errors, also known as bugs. Towards the end of this phase, the game's art, music, sound design, etc. are in play. And now, it's time for testing, also known as post-production. In this phase, quality assurance plays a big role, as testers play the game to detect any bugs, report them to the programmers in some sort of document, and have it eventually fixed. As little as post-production includes, it can actually take just as long as production, as these bug fixes might actually tweak the game's main features. Even after the video game has been released, the staff still tends to work on the game, as future updates will happen when the staff thinks of different concepts and think that they will enhance the game. In other words, a game can be playable, but never finished. The daily routine revolves around communicating with the staff and keeping up with the schedule on what needs to be done. All of the work can be done from home or at work. As long as you have a way of doing the work with any computer and have it done on time, you will get paid for your productivity in this field. There is one YouTuber that is very well known by the game design community, Virtues. Virtues is a game designer specialized in one of the most popular game engines, Unreal Engine. This is the same engine that has developed almost 600 games in the past 20 years, and brought games such as Rocket League, Mortal Kombat, Fortnite, and for some reason, Shrek 2. It is one of the best engines to try out. It's free, it's easy to use, and you can learn a lot from it in terms of development. Virtues has done a great job on breaking down this engine and simplifying it into many tutorial series, like game dev tutorial, 3D modeling tutorial, blueprint programming, working with animations, and even The Legend of Zelda. From watching his videos, it's very clear that game design is his passion. So I decided to email him with some questions about it and how he became who he is today. These are the questions I asked and his response to each one. 1. What did you want to do with your life before? If it was different than what you're doing now, why did you turn it down? Prior to this, I was at college, speaking of which I didn't actually finish. While starting at college doing computer science, I was ahead of the class, and as such, they let me teach for an hour every week. The first time I did this, I got an incredible rush out of helping others. It was great. I simply combined my passion for game development and teaching into a one idea, this community, and I've pursued it since. Being that I was able to do the two things I enjoy, I would not be able to go back to do anything else. 2. What keeps you up and running in this field? In other words, what keeps you motivated to keep doing what you're doing?
My motivation to keep me going is simply my passion for game development. I'm a creative at heart, and that makes me enjoy spending time learning and teaching the things that I do. In addition to this, the technology is ever growing. There's an almost infinite amount of knowledge to learn and grasp. Always a challenge. Something I thoroughly enjoy. 3. What would you do if you found out that the field you're in has a very low job outlook, giving you less of an opportunity to make money out of your career? If there wasn't an opportunity to do what I do, I would still do it simply as a hobby, being that it's a creative field. I would, however, first spend time to make sure I'm up there at the top of my field, making sure I was able to get the job that I wanted by perfecting my portfolio, getting plenty of experience and knowledge however way I can. 4. If you were to run into any sort of conflict in the workplace, do you contemplate or do you come up with a reasonable and plausible solution? If I were to run into a conflict in the workplace, I would always focus on finding a solution that meets the needs of the business whilst keeping the team in mind. There's always a happy compromise. Sometimes you just have to be creative to find it. 5. What kind of issues do you run into in this field? Give an example of one and how you overcame it. Probably the main issue that you run into in the field is simply the learning curve. There's so much to learn, and when I first started out, the best thing I did was to simply talk to someone in the industry and get guidance from them. 6. What matters most to you in this field? For example, do you do it for the money or for your passion? For me, the most important thing in this field is having creative expression, being able to create and make the things that I want to do. That is way more important than money. I've always been taught that success is being able to do what you enjoy. 7. What would you consider the most important traits to have for a career in general? For example, communication is key to everything. In this field, creativity and initiative are probably the strong traits you can have. Sometimes you gotta think outside of the box to create something new, or simply figure out a workaround for your problems. Game development is creative, yet very technical, so a strong mix between the two is very important. 8. Do you care about doing something revolutionary in this field? In other words, do you care about becoming known/popular for what you do? I definitely want to make a difference by doing what I do. Fame and popularity mean very little to me. I just want people to enjoy my work and learn from it. 9. What advice do you have for those who are struggling and how they should proceed game design? Best advice I can give to someone struggling with game design is to just download a game engine, dive in and experiment and set yourself small challenges and overcome them. If you keep doing this, and eventually everything will just fall into place. This goes to show that if you knew most of these answers from a professional game design perspective, and you're just starting out, you have a lot of potential in this field. Also, thank you so much, Virtues, for the email.
I started drawing Blue's Clues' paws when I was 3, and my mom was amazed at how accurate it was at my age.
That was around the time when I started doing drawings as a hobby.
Sure, I was a bit, casual at it, but it was something I enjoyed. While what I gave to someone amazed them, I was amazed when someone got something for me. When I was 4, my grandma called Mame gave me a Game Boy Advance, the first gaming device I ever owned. Ever since then, I was hooked on so many classics, like WarioWare, The Sims Busting Out, Wario Land 4, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and even those little Cartoon Network cartridges that had like 4 episodes of their most popular series. And keep in mind that this was all before I could figure out how to work a TV. I just loved how diverse this device was. Over time, I broadened my horizons and got the latest consoles, such as the GameCube, then the DS, then the Wii, then the 3DS, then the Wii U, and then the Nintendo Switch. Okay, it wasn't just all about Nintendo. I was given consoles like the PS4 and played many games that weren't licensed by Nintendo to see how different and unique they were compared to what I played as a child.
I was, of course, bullied by this sort of thing when I was a kid. And it did get the best of me due to my disorder, which is called Asperger's, and got me in a lot of trouble when I retaliated.
This continued up until my high school freshman year. After that point when I was suspended for a fight, I came back the next year with no intention on picking any fights.
During my sophomore year, I met a specific girl who had a big crush on me.
I started to have feelings for her at the time as well. We eventually hung out at a Halloween party, joked around about a lot of offensive stuff, and overall just had fun. And that was when she started to state a lot of personal problems in her life that I'm just not gonna repeat. I laughed it off because I thought she was just joking.
This was the point where I started to learn how to be more empathetic toward people, despite how much I hated them all my life. A couple months later, we stopped hanging out, and we just did our own stuff in class. And by that, I was being an arrogant little brat hanging out in class with those that gave me a lot of peer pressure. Eventually, my world history teacher, who was in the military, stepped in and shouted at us with his criticism about how incompetent we were. Sure, he was violating a policy at our school by being aggressive towards us, but it was just something in his voice and what he said to us. It really unlocked a new stage of my maturity. So much so that I came to the conclusion that game design was going to be my career choice. Another part of my inspiration was a YouTuber named Yandere Dev, an indie game designer who has been working on a game project called Yandere Simulator over the past 2 years at that time. He gave me the inspiration to start my career on the same engine he used, Unity. I mean, while I never mastered it, I still attained a lot of knowledge and started to learn more about the reality of my field. Even then, I went along with it. It was also around this time when I took an art class and improved tremendously on my abilities. During my junior year, I just explored the many roles that the game industry has, little by little. I practiced in fields such as 3D modeling, programming, photography, and story writing. I decided to enroll into dual enrollment for my senior year to gain professional experience. At that point, I've made a playable prototype, plenty of character design concepts, and overall just a lot more experience in what I was getting myself into. When it comes to college, you have to put your own desires aside and think about the bigger picture. For me, that involved doing the required courses at a college called Valencia, specifically the East Campus. Now, when I was starting out, places such as the Advising Center and my teachers in general helped give me guidance on what courses I needed in order to get my associate's degree. It was a good thing that I received my FAFSA to help me pay for my classes, especially since making financial decisions isn't my strong suit. Meanwhile, in those courses, I volunteered at the Career Center for occupations relating to my field. I did computer programming and photography. After all the struggle in those courses, I managed to get enough credit to transfer to UCF for my bachelor's degree, which its overall cost was over $28,000. The atmosphere there is amazing. It was almost like it was a whole other city. Yeah, the student size there was intimidating at first, but I eventually developed that trait as self-advocacy, self-determination, and overall just confidence in myself and my abilities. Here, I took courses such as fine arts, theater, mathematics, physics, and finally, digital media. After receiving my bachelor's degree, I applied for the FIEA, which stands for Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy, at UCF for my master's degree, which its overall cost was over $45,000. This program was perfect! Finally, a program where I could and did excel at what I was great at, and collaborate with others to help get my work and theirs out in the world. Even though the least I needed was a bachelor's degree, I just didn't feel satisfied. I wanted more out of what I wanted, and given the opportunity to do so, I couldn't ask for more. The biggest difference between high school and college is how free roam the campus is. When you're done with your classes, you can go to the cafe, the library, and more depending on the size of the college, and do whatever you need to do. For me, that involved researching books at Valencia's bookstore, going to the library to do online assignments, get tutoring there for problems like mathematics, going to the answer center to ask certain questions, ask peers for copies of specific assignments, and so on. The key to surviving college is to remember that you're not on your own when you have assignments with deadlines. They're always open to giving you resources to help you. My academic program relates to my strengths because I'm the type of guy who's intrigued in a lot of subjects. Around high school was when I actually enjoyed reading books from fiction to nonfiction, and I've been engaged in many of them. I really do feel that I've really grown since then. If I were to summarize the experience in this field, it would be under the term imagination. It's one of the greatest fields to express yourself creatively and take your concepts into something that's interactive, fun, aesthetic, and even more than you thought. But it's important to keep in mind that great freedom also comes with great responsibility. Practicing time management, meeting deadlines, learning communication skills, and choosing to do action in general will help you have fun in this field while simultaneously being responsible. For my final advice, just put your concepts down, write them down, draw them, anything. Do something with them to make them better. And if you're willing to, you can upload them to the internet. When choosing to do this, you should embrace it, not fear it. It's how you'll get more comfortable at what you want to do in the game industry. It's also how you'll learn, just like how people will learn how to play your video games. So go out there and explore.